It's that time of the year where the awards contenders begin to be released. Now, I just saw Belfast. Could it be something that grabs a lot of nominations? But you know what? More importantly, is it a film that you should check out? A 9-year-old boy must chart a path towards adulthood through a world that has suddenly turned upside down in 1960s Northern Ireland. The story was written and directed by Kenneth Branagh, and supposedly he draws on a lot of his own experiences as a kid to craft this story. The film is a beautiful one to look at. It opens with modern images of the surrounding country, shown all in color, and then it creatively transitions to the past where the presentation is in black and white. There are other times within the story where landscapes are shown and Branagh allows the camera to just patiently sit on a scene, even when nothing is going on within the frame and no people are present. We get to contemplate what's going on within the story, and sometimes it's a brief reprieve from some heaviness. We meet the central character of the story, Buddy, through a joyously chaotic sequence that then quickly erupts into violence. And this sets the stage very quickly that while there will be good times shown within the story, everything we witness is going to be set against a backdrop of growing tensions and violence. Many of the scenes within this story take place on Buddy's street, with the occasional excursions to his school and to his granny and pop's place. And this creates a very quaint and familiar setting, reinforcing how most of the characters know their surroundings and have never left Belfast, and then can never imagine living anywhere else. The film showcases the talents of an awesome cast. We have Caitríona Balfe, Jamie Dornan, Judi Dench, and Ciarán Hinds. They're all wonderfully cast, allowing to bring some relatable interactions. Now, sometimes they're dryly funny, other times they're rightfully terrified, and still other times they are calmly extolling wisdom. And they have wonderful chemistry together, and they play off each other in ways that make them feel like a genuine family. Now, as awesome as they are, the real standout of the film is newcomer Jude Hill. This kid is sweet, charming, inquisitive, he's wise beyond his years, and he's terribly funny. There are conversations that he has where he absolutely sucked me into it because of his emotion and his expressions. There's this one point where he's having a conversation with his cousin, and not only is it just a really entertaining exchange, but Buddy brings to light some wonderful logic and then pairs it with subtly hilarious body language. It's really hard not to root for his character, no matter what's going on within the story. Now, because this story does take place as violence is erupting between Protestants and Catholics, there's a fair amount of underlying dread that follows the entire film. I think there were many opportunities for Branagh to dive deeper into the mire and show how dark things really became, but he chooses to show us just enough to paint the picture and then create an understanding without having to put us into the bell jar of despair. I actually appreciate the fact that this didn't get as dark as it could. We're really just following the family as they have to begin to make decisions based on what's occurring around them. Do they stay where they know the surroundings and the people, even with growing danger? Or do they trek out into the unknown and move to a place where they don't know anybody with the hopes that it will be a safer place for their children to grow up? This in and itself is a great struggle that is displayed, and it allows for some very moving conversations and then story tension. And just because the film doesn't go as dark as it could, that doesn't mean that there aren't explosive moments within the story where we can feel danger and peril for our characters. Those exist, and at times they get very exciting. Now, because this is Branagh's story and it's at least semi-autobiographical, we get to see some small nods to some of the things that influence the boy who becomes a filmmaker. There are several times within this where Buddy and other members of his family are watching movies, and we get to see how they are exciting and captivating for him. We also see him attend stage plays, and even at one moment, he's reading a Thor comic, which I especially enjoyed since he ended up directing the first Thor movie for the MCU. Now, one creative aspect that Branagh uses in this is when Buddy is watching a film in the theater or watching a stage play, those images are in color, and it's showcasing the imagination and fantasy of a world that he gets to observe. And at one point during a stage performance, we can see some reflections of the acting that are in Judi Dench's glasses. And while she and the rest of the audience are completely in black and white, the reflections are shown still in color. That's a small detail, but one that I really appreciated, carrying the aesthetic that was created just all the way through. The music is also something that really stands out in this. I loved the soundtrack and especially enjoyed how the music is actually part of the storytelling. We see records spinning and radios playing with speakers then dragged to windows so that everybody can dance in the street. Now, there are some repetitive sequences within this, but they don't feel out of place or really even bothersome. I call them repetitive because we watch similar actions take place several times, but they're necessary to not only show the passage of time, but also to show how some of life has to continue on, despite hardships and struggles. Now, this is a surprisingly short film at only 98 minutes. I didn't feel rushed, and I can't even think of portions where I would have liked to have lingered longer. The conversations and actions are executed efficiently and impactfully without drawing them out unnecessarily. This is actually a very easy movie to like. The characters are engaging and charismatic. The story is simple, but it contains some wonderful depth to the message, and the imagery is beautiful to watch, drawing us in with settings that are immersive. I think the message that's contained within this is also wildly applicable for today. The main tensions surround the true conflict between Protestants and Catholics, but it's the intolerance that each share for the other that mirrors today's world. There's a point at the very end of the film where Jamie Dornan's Pa is talking to Buddy about a girl that Buddy likes, but who also happens to be Catholic. Pa tells him that she could be Southern Baptist or a vegetarian Antichrist, among several other things, and as long as she is kind, she'd be welcome in their home. So that level of tolerance and acceptance was beautiful, and I thought it was a great way to cap the story. Now, this does have a slight art house feel to its execution, which I'm afraid could keep mass audiences from seeing it. But I wouldn't classify this as an art house film. It may not be superheroes or a sequel, but it is an original tale with a wonderful message executed with wit and charisma by stellar actors. And hey, it's a feel-good movie to boot. So overall, Belfast is a love letter of sorts to Branagh's childhood and his years living in the quaint and then tumultuous title city. The acting is spectacular, with the highlight truly being Jude Hill. While the story could dive into more of the harrowing aspects of the tensions of the city, it chooses to use that violence only as the backdrop for shaping the world and conversations within the narrative. This also helps to create a message that informs us of the past, but also instructs us for the present. This is a charming movie filled with heart and humor. There's no sex or nudity, but there is a bunch of profanity and violence. I give Belfast 4.5 out of 5 couches. What are you looking forward to watching? Is there a particular movie that you've just been chomping at the bit to see? I'd love to hear what it is in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.